Dennis, I want to talk to you about some of the different musical styles that have influenced you. What about the music of James Brown?
I started listening to James Brown, at a very young age. I think I was like five or 6 years old when I first started noticing James Brown and stuff. And I used to like emulate a lot of James Brown records just to learn how to play grooves or just learn how to play music, period. And there was a few drummers that I knew or I learned to know, just by their styles of playing, which is Clyde Stubblefield and Melvin Parker. And Clyde, stuck out like a sore thumb to me. So I found him the most interesting player of all the players.
What about some of the Memphis drummers, such as Al Jackson?
Al Jackson, you know, I mean, I love this stuff. You know, when he played with Otis Redding and the Booker T's and MGs, you know, all the stuff that came over the radio back at that time.
That influenced your pocket
Yeah.
playing.
Yeah. Yeah, and, you know, of course, I got away from pocket playing at a very young age, you know, because of, you know, I mean, I learned how to play music by emulating those records, you know, the pocket stuff. But I learned how to I started getting into jazz at a very young age. I think the first thing I remember emulating was Dave Brubeck, Take 5, which was
With
Joe
Joe
Morello.
Morello.
And then it just went on from there right into you know, Art Blakey and you know, Philly Joe. You know, I tried to emulate, you know, because I never went to school for music. You know, I'm a self-taught musician. You know, so I got it. You know, I had to get it the best way I can, and the best way I knew how to do it was just emulating those records, because I just didn't know any. I didn't know any better at the time.
And at the same time, you're gigging. I mean, in Modern Drummer, there's a reference that you started working in clubs at the age of 6.
At the age of 6, yeah. I think I was more of a novelty act. You know, I mean, I was, you know, just a little guy they called Little Dennis, who, you know, they used to bring me in these clubs and set me up on telephone books. They used to lower the seat. No, they put a little chair out and they put little telephone books in it, and I would sit behind the drums and play. Couldn't reach the, I could reach the pedal, but I couldn't play the hi-hat at the time. So I was real good at doing that. And then when the cops come in, they would like yank me off real fast. The reason why I could get away with playing in clubs is because of my mother. My mother was a background singer for Motown. So she was a sort of like a celebrity. And that was my sort of okay to go in these clubs to play. I was like little Audrey's son.
So after James Brown and the soul drumming, who would you say next? Zig and the Meters?
Yeah, Zig and the Meters. You know, I don't know which was first, actually. Well, it had to have been James Brown first, and then came the Meters, I remember now. You know, when I first heard Sissy Strut, that just like floored me, you know. And, you know, here this guy comes in and, you know, play like, you know, this real slick, you know, like hi-hat thing, you know, he did, which was really unheard of back then. It was before Pretty Purdy played his hi-hat thing on Rock Steady, you know. I mean, the open and close hi-hat thing, and with the backbeat being the way it was, I just fell in love with that. Harvey Mason, when he was with the Headhunters.
Mm-hmm.
Just floored me. I mean, those records, you know, the Head Chameleon, it was just amazing. Some of the
Right.
stuff he played on that stuff, and you know, just great playing.
So these were kinds of milestones in the evolution of funk drumming.
Yes. When I saw Billy Cobham play, you know, from that moment on, I wanted to play fusion.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I mean, here's a guy who played a right-handed setup and played a left-hand ride cymbal, or had his ride cymbal on the left-hand side. When I saw that, it was just something new for me. You know, I'd never seen anybody up until that moment, or until that time. I never saw anybody do that.
Right. So a new challenge.
It was a new challenge, you know. So I jumped on it right away, you know. So everything I learned how to do with my right, I had to go back and learn how to do with my left.
Uh-huh.
But then later, you know, I learned that, you know, people look at that like it's showing off, so to speak. So I just dropped doing a lot of things with my left side, or try to play everything out, do my right, try to play it on my left. I just stuck to my right. And I think what happened was, you know, later when I joined P-Funk, when the percussionist left the band, I took all his gear, you know, and put it over to my left side of the drum kit.
Uh-huh.
You know, and it was all stick percussion. There was just 2 timbales, a whole bunch of cowbells, and like few cymbals, various of cymbals, and other little things I could hit on at the time.
Mm-hmm.
So it came back. You know, I started playing a lot of stuff, or leading with my left. You know, because I had to play percussion with my left hand and play the drum kit with my right.
Uh-huh. At the same
Which was
time.
easy to do, actually, because I mean, for the drum part, because George wanted was a solid bass drum playing 4, you know, playing solid 4s, and you just crash on the one with every other one with the cymbal, the crash cymbal.
Uh-huh. But you've also got 20 musicians on stage to worry about, and horn hits. And
Yeah. Parliament Funkadelic or Funkadelic music had a heavy influence on my funk playing.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's actually when I learned how to play with a rhythm section.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I mean, because up until that time, you know, like with the fusion music, you know, I mean, it's about playing with each other there, but
Right.
you know, you really, I mean, you know, you're playing a lot and you're not really listening. I mean, you're listening, but you're really not listening to what's going on around you.
Right.
At least when, you know, some of the musicians I grew up playing with, playing fusion music at that time, that's what that was about. But when I joined P-Funk, or Parliament Funkadelic, you know, it was 20 guys, and it had to sound like 20 people on the bandstand.
So how old were you when you joined the band?
18 or 19 years old. I think it was like 18 years old.
And that was your first major touring act?
Yeah, it's funny. You know, here I am in, you know, just out of high school, playing in jazz clubs, you know, playing a lot of jazz music and a lot of fusion music. Next thing I know, I get a call or I get a plane ticket to come down to Atlanta, Georgia, you know, to start rehearsing with the band. So, and you know, the next night after that, I'm at Madison Square Gardens. You know, it was pretty wild.
Mm-hmm.
I remember, like, you know, the lights would go up. I look out and there are all these people. I've never seen that many people in my life. You know, and look down, I have like all these goosebumps, and you couldn't hear, you know, because the people were like cheering. You couldn't hear when you count off. So I would count off, and everybody, the band is like, what? You know, what's going on? You know? So I had to like yell, you know, like real loud to count off the tunes. You know, playing with P-Funk was a great experience for me.
How long did it take before you really felt comfortable in that band?
2 months.
Mm-hmm.
I felt comfortable in, you know, like being with the band, but I never felt comfortable playing the music until like actually like 3 years.
Mm-hmm.
About 3 years after I joined the band. You know, all of it until that time. I mean, I'd spent a long time playing a lot of jazz fusion music, you know, and I mean, you know, like funk, so to speak, but, you know, P-Funk or Parliament Funkadelic is a whole different type of funk thing. You know, all your life you know, you listen to a band that you know, you really idolize for, you know, like in your earlier years, and all of a sudden here you are playing with them.
Mm-hmm.
I never dreamed that I would be playing with those guys.
So this period of 9 years had a heavy influence on what you've done since then, in terms of the groove and the foundation and the pocket. Can you talk a little bit about how that developed and some of the George Clinton ideas?
Yeah, well, one thing I had to learn was like how to play in the pocket, and I didn't know what that meant because no one explained that to me, especially in that organization, until later. You know, I finally broke down and was like, man, what are you guys talking about? You know, like, what is pocket? You know, and what it meant was, okay, well, the time is here, 1, 2, 3, 4. You can either play right on those beats, which George didn't want. He wanted to lay back a little bit, you know, like behind it a little bit, and that's what he meant, you know, with, you know, putting it in the pocket. But you could still feel the time being where it is. It was just, you know, you still had this heavy or this little sluggish feeling, type of thing.
But was the hi-hat?
The hi-hat stayed on,
Stayed
you know,
on.
the time.
Snare drum?
Yeah, I mean, sort of like what Gadd does with his left hand. You know, when he plays snare drums, it's like some of the stuff he did with Steely Dan. You know, some of those examples were like just, you know, his snare drum was like behind the beat, so to speak. You know, just, yeah, a little bit laid back, and that's pocket playing. That's what George called pocket playing.
So that would carry on into the record dates you're doing today, whether it's sequence music or not. It all still applies.
Yeah, it still applies, but I don't get a chance to do those type of things anymore because, you know, usually, you know, guys want you to, you know, I work with a lot of guys who work with these sequencers, and they want it to be exactly right on the beat, you know, and, you know, as soon as you try to lay it back a little bit, they think, you know, like the time is like a little weird.
Right.
And all you're trying to do is just, you know, like trying to create a comfortable vibe on the track, you know.
Human feeling.
Yeah. But the only time I really get a chance to exercise those type of things is like when I'm playing live with the rhythm section.
The parts that you and Gary came up with for Blue Matter, I mean, they're very unique. And they're very locked in together. There's a lot of patterns that are phrased together between the bass and the drums. How did that all come about?
Well, as far as I remember, it was, John brought in this tune, just had like, the chord changes and the accents.
Mm-hmm.
We started playing a groove, which wasn't the groove that was on the record at the time, but it was like another thing.
Right.
And then all of a sudden I started playing, like the triplet thing, which is what I learned from listening to Tiki Forward. Gary played he had a bass line, he was like, he changed his bass line to fit what I was doing,
Mm-hmm.
And then it came about, like he listening to me listening to him, because there were a few things I had to change to fit his thing too.
Right.
So, and that's how it, that's how it evolved.
And John just let it happen.
He just let it happen. That's the great thing about John.
Right.
When you play with his band, he don't like really tell you what to do. He just bring in some music. I mean, if he don't like what you do, he'll say, okay, well, I don't
Right.
like this. Why don't you try this? But that was just very seldom he would do that.
Mm-hmm.
I just remember, like he just always just brought in these tunes, and he was like, well, here's the tune.
Right.
Here's the accents. You learn the accents, and the rest, you got it. You guys got it. He just trusts us to do those type of things. It haven't been that way since. I can't remember it ever being that way since.
Mm.
Where we're, where if you're in a band and the band leader will just let you do what you do. He trusts you to do what you do.
Mm-hmm.
It's just like somebody saying, here's a sketch of a painting. Put some color to it. a lot of people think, when they hear those triplets on the bass drum, they immediately think that I got that from John Bonham. It's because probably that's where they first heard it from. But for me, the first cat I ever heard do that was Tiki Fulwood, with Funkadelic. And the second time I heard it was with John Bonham. And John Bonham made it famous, so to speak, because everybody was into, rock music and, that kind of thing. Another time I heard that triplet configuration was done by a guy named Diamond, and he was the drummer who played with the Ohio Players, which he demonstrated some things like this. Of course, the tempo was a little faster, or the tune was a little faster than that, but he made a landmark with that, and then I came along and did it.
We've talked about drummers who influenced you throughout the 60s and the 70s. I'm interested, when was the first time you heard Vinnie Colaiuta?
I heard Vinnie when I was with P-Funk, and the first thing I remember hearing was the Joe's Garage record. And when I heard that, I was totally blown away by his plan. I mean, today I have various different, influences. A serious range, from the jazz, from the fusion, from the funk, from the, pocket. Just have a big variety of different influences. Marvin Smitty Smith is one of my favorite drummers, today. Bebop, his bebop plan is amazing. His other things that he does, like the groove stuff is pretty amazing. Jeff Watts is another one of my favorites. Tommy Campbell is one of my favorites. Weckel is one of my favorites. Gadd is one of my favorites. Billy is still one of my favorites. Tony is my favorites. And there's one drummer I like to mention that not too many people. There's two drummers I like to mention. I don't think people know anything about them. One drummer is this guy named Gary Husband, who plays with Level 42 right now, but he used to play with Alan Holdsworth. He kind of reminds me of, when he plays with Holdsworth, he kind of reminds me of Tony. Another drummer is a guy named Mark Mundesier. And both of these drummers are from Britain. Mark Mundesier is a phenomenal bebop player. There's Will Kennedy also, who plays with the Yellow Jackets. I love the way he plays. It's a whole bunch of guys, a whole bunch of guys around New York,
Right, I think every time you're in town, you're at a different club every night.
Yeah, I make it a point, I make it a point to just go and just check out people. Another guy I always fail to mention is Lenny White. Just the way he tunes his drums and his approach to playing the drums it's I'm just really knocked out about, by his plan. And Jack DeJohnette, those are my favorite players, including the old guys, with Max and Elvin and Philly Joe, Papa Joe, and Big Sid Catlett, Louis Bellson, who I had a chance to play with. Still have to pinch myself on that. Can't believe I actually, shared the same stage with him.
That's one of the things I'm impressed about, is you seem very open-minded about taking in everything. You mentioned one day Joey Barron. That's a whole different side of jazz.
He's another one of my favorites. When I go see somebody like him, I kind of wish that I had, never played drums. Because this guy has such a beautiful approach to playing, and I wish that everybody just thought about or had the same approach as this guy, you know, when he plays, you know, such as, you know, when Lenny plays and Joey and all those other guys, you know, it makes me go home and want to like just, you know, think about, well, maybe I'll go into another field, another area, take another career.
Mm.
And it's weird, you know, because some of those guys share or they express those feelings to me, and I'm like, man, get out of here, you know.